Hey everyone, how's it going? So today I want to talk to you about stereo LR mix versus multitrack and what that means as far as recording in live sound. So both stereo LR and multitrack are two completely different things, but they're pretty self-explanatory. So in case you don't know what that means, here's a quick explanation. Stereo LR means you are getting essentially the main final stereo mix of the board that's going over to PA, or it's sent to a recorder via a matrix feed from the board, and you just get one stereo file, and that is the mix. There's really not much you can do with it. However, multitrack means that you are recording the kick drum, the snare, the guitar, the bass, the vocal, everything in its own stem, and that means you can mix it yourself in post or hire an engineer to do it for you, so you have a higher quality mix for whatever concert that you want to release on video. Or if you want to release it as a live album, you could put it on Spotify or your other distributor. Now, when I do sound, I record the stereo LR mix for all the bands that come to my venue. And if you're familiar with my streams, you know that my mixes sound all right, not to toot my own horn here. But there are instances where the mixes aren't as stellar as I would like them, and I wish there were multitracks to get an even better result. So today I'm going to go over 3 instances where I recorded both the stereo LR for broadcast as well as recorded the multitrack to mix in post so that we can compare how it sounds. Spoilers, the multitracks sound a lot better. So the first instance that we're going to talk about is something that's actually much recent chronologically on my channel. I live streamed the mixing process of these multitracks, and if you want to watch it yourself, you can check the live section of my channel and watch it yourself. But let's talk about a band that I worked with called The Smugs. So the band came to Dingbats, and of course I live streamed the entire thing. And I want to first highlight the stereo LR mix from the live stream. Right away, you can tell that there really isn't that much guitar definition, and that's because when I was mixing this live, his vocal needed to be prioritized, and with live sound, the vocal just has to come through. Otherwise, your audience isn't going to hear it, and you're inevitably, if you're in a small venue and you're a sound guy, you're going to have people coming over to you saying, I can't hear the vocal, and it will just ruin your day and ruin your night. So when I do live sound, I have to prioritize the vocal. So even though the stereo mix on broadcast, the guitar is a little low, his amp and stage volume was loud enough where the audience in the venue could hear him just fine. But anyway, let's continue listening. So the low end of the kick drum is coming through. I feel all the sub lows coming in, but it's not snappy and it's a little boxy. It could be improved on. Remember, when I'm mixing live in a venue and on my streams, I prioritize the room first. The stream is secondary, and it's way too loud for me to have an independent stream mix to make accurate mixing decisions for a separate stream mix. So you guys, when you watch my streams, you get the stereo LR. There's really nothing I could do in a venue that's almost 100 dB on average. So that leads me to the multitracks, and these are the multitracks from the band from that set. And this was recorded straight from the Behringer Wing Compact. I have the kick drum, snare, couple toms, the overheads. I have a bass, one guitar, one vocal, and the room mic. And you're going to see that that room mic makes the biggest difference in a live mix setting. If you don't have a room mic for multitracks or even for your stream mix, get yourself a room mic. You'll thank me later. I'm not going to do an entire mix breakdown specifically of this one because you guys have seen the entire stream before of me mixing it, so you see all of my mixing decisions on film. If you want to see it, go on my live section and you can find the mix session of this. But I just want to highlight the song that we just heard. It's called Metro Station, and this is the multi-track mix version of that song. right away, you can hear the guitar way more upfront, little more grungy sounding. And the bass, you hear the crunchiness of the bass. It's hitting you in the gut. And the kick, I hear way more. I hear a lot more presence of the kick drum in the mix. All right, so some key differences. First off, that snare drum is coming in a lot more full, and it has a little more low end to it. And that's because I boosted the hell out of the low end on this. I mean, I have a 4.5 dB boost around 200 to give it a little more fatness. And I also have what is one of my tricks to get low end punch from the snare drum. I have the Slate virtual mix rack loaded up here, and I have the punch setting on the custom series lift basically cranked all the way up. And to get a lot of fatness from a snare drum, I load up the FG Bomber, put the drive until it hits the bomb section, put the intensity at 50, and put the tone on fat, and that creates a lot of punchiness and fatness from a snare drum. And to finish up the evenness of the drum sound, I have a drum leveler on the kick and snare because the drummer was a little inconsistent with hitting the kick and the snare throughout the set. This basically solves that problem to where I don't need to put a sample on the drum kit in order to ruin the sound of the drummer's performance and the tone of the drums. But I want to first highlight the importance of a room mic. I'm going to play that section of the song again, and I'm going to add in the room mic when I'm playing it without the room mic. So I'm going to start without the room mic, and then I'll add in the room mic. I hope you noticed that difference with the room mic. It added a little more life into the full mix, and just a little bit of a room mic in a mix can really drive home the liveliness of the performance being captured. So with that instance, in that specific example, I would say that is a situation where the stereo LR mix is probably not the best, but a band wants to pay you as the sound guy to record the multitracks to mix in post. Or if you're a band and want to release the multitrack mix as a video, which is what the Smugs did, and I will link their video in the description of their video of the whole set. Multitrack mixing is a lot more tedious of an effort, but it gives you that much better quality. And I think I'm driving home the point here. Now, what if you're in a situation where you are mixing in a room that is, without being too mean here, bad? What if you're mixing in a situation that is just not good, and you are in a room that is really, really horrible acoustically, and you want to get the band up there and sounding the best you can, but there is just so much room echo, the room is not acoustically treated, and you are just scraping by to get through the set. So this is a situation that happened to me, and I released a video about this. It's called Mixing a Set with the Behringer Wayne Compact, No Talking, No BS. And this is the full set from the band Surrender to Eden, which I'm going on tour with in March. I can't wait. And this was, when I was first off starting out with the Behringer Wayne Compact, I wasn't as familiar with it as I am now. So that, again, is another reason why the stereo LR is, again, not the best, but mainly the room that we were in for this show was horrendous. Now, I'm not saying that the venue is bad. I'm saying the room in which you play in and mix in is pretty bad. It's not ideal, to put it lightly. So this is their song called Send Us an Angel, and this was the stereo LR that was recorded to my computer, and it was also what was going over the PA. All right out of the gate, the snare drum sounds like it's the bottom snare that was recorded, when in reality, that was the top of the snare drum. Again, there's a lot of things that went into this. There was not a lot of high ends that was coming through the venue, and I had to boost the crap out of the high end, so the snare drum really didn't sound full. And also, I wasn't 100% familiar with the Wing Compact. This is probably like the second time I ever used it in a live setting. So a lot of factors went into a less than stellar LR mix. It's passable, but it's not entirely great. And Surrender to Eden is one of those bands that they need a lot of reverb. They need a lot of fullness. They need their mix to sound huge and full because they're just that type of band. They're not a punk rock band where the rawness and sometimes thinness of the drums and the guitar you can get away with. They're not that vibe. Surrender to Eden is one of those like symphonic bands that really commands a full, huge mix. So here are the multi-tracks of that set, and I don't think I ever released any of this on my channel before, so this is the first time you guys are hearing this. I mixed it and sent it to the band, and they were absolutely stellar about it. So I'm very happy with how this sounds, and this is really one of the best examples of the stereo LR is not really the best, and the multi-tracks just make it a completely different song. So here it is, the same song called Send Us an Angel, and again, the band is called Surrender to Eden. This is the finished multi-track mix. It's hard to believe that that is the same song and same performance, and that's just the biggest difference of what multi-tracks do. Let's go over what I did with that snare drum real quick. So let's turn off all of my mix bus effects and focus solely on the snare drum, because to get that where it was, that took a lot of creativity. So I'm sure you probably noticed this down here. I'll zoom in. When I record a live set and I mix multitrack, I use a plugin called Auto Align, and basically what that does is I take all of the multitracks And what this plugin does is auto-align them so they have the best phase relation. Not a lot of things are canceling each other out with phase issues, and it aligns the tracks so that they sound the best. I highly recommend you get this plugin because it will save you a lot of time and stress when it comes to dealing with phase cancellation issues in both your studio mixing and your live tracking. So here is the snare drum. Let's turn off this. Here is the snare drum completely raw as it was recorded. So the first thing I do is I add on a noise gate with the targeted frequency areas of the snare drum. So roughly around 200 to about 5K. Then I added in a Pro Q3 to just take care of some frequencies that were pinging a little too much for my liking. Then I added all the multitracks to a Studer A800 simulation from UA. And here is one of the secret weapons as far as getting your tracks to sound pretty much as good as they're going to sound in a quote-unquote raw setting. What I do is I usually have a lesser stellar quality tape, so I use the 456 usually for drums. I have the IPS set to 30. What I do then is I open up the equalizer in the plugin, and I raise the HF driver, the high end of that, to just make it a little more snappy. And I will turn it. I will play it off, and then I will turn it on so you can hear the difference. Right? That is such a huge difference in sound, and already I could use that and be totally fine with it. Next, I even wanted a little more crash, and by a little more, I mean a lot. I have an 8K shelf cranked at 10 dB. I have a little bit of 600 taken out, and then I have a little bit boosted at 200. The knobs are here to turn. No one's going to be... Chris the Lord Algae said it best. No one's going to get killed or no one's going to get hurt if you crank the knobs too much. So I will play it as is, and then I'll add this on. Eliminate a lot of boxiness, and it sounds pretty awesome right now. Next, I added in the best snare compressor I've ever used, and I use a API 2500 bus compressor. I know this is a bus compressor, but it sounds awesome for snare drums. Next, I then put on a native drum strip from SSL, and this just attacks the transients, little high-end frequency enhancer, and a little low-frequency enhancer. So here it is off, and then I'll turn it on. Just all the difference in the world. And what makes my snare drums unique sounding is I will add a Snare Reverb, which is essentially a silver plate reverb. You can get this in the Slate Everything bundle. And I have what's called a gated snare. So I learned this trick from Glenn Fricker, and this is a go-to for any snare drum that needs more life in my mixes. So you put on the FG16X, nonlinear, name medium decay, around 300 milliseconds, or just do it by what feels good for your tempo, and you crank the shit out of the gain. So what you do then is you purposely make it as distorted as hell so that when your snare hits, it's all the world of a difference. So I will add the snare reverb on, and I'll play the snare as is, and then I'll add the snare reverb. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the gated snare reverb. Going to add both. That just gives the snare drum such a such a much more huge presence. I'm not going to go over every single thing I did, but the snare drum really stood out to me. So I just wanted to highlight that chain for that. The whole drum bus goes to an 1176, and this basically is just a little bit of parallel compression, and that just adds the drum sound to where it is. So that's a situation where if you listen to the LR mix and you listen to it and you're like, man, that can sound a whole lot better. I know it can sound a whole lot better because the band I know is better than how it sounds on the LR mix. That is a perfect reason as to record multi-tracks and mix in post. But now I want to get to a situation where the stereo LR mix is pretty solid, but you also want to record the multi-tracks to see if you can tweak it just a little bit. And what I mean by that is when I had Dead Again, the Typo Negative tribute band, come to Dingbats last Halloween. I make no apologies about it. This is probably my favorite set that I recorded and mixed all of 2024. These guys came in and they were just so unbelievably good. And Dead Again had their guitars, their bass, keyboards, and everything just about, basically everything about their set direct except the drum mics and the vocal mics. So it was very easy to dial in their set. But there are a couple of things that I wish during live that we could have gone over a little bit more. So I'm going to play you the second chorus section of their cover of Christian Woman, and I'll tell you what I don't really like about it when we're done playing it. So that sounds really good. All right, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm not happy at all with that mix. That sounds unbelievably good. And Dead Again, they were one of those bands that had their stuff dialed in perfectly. And if you are working with a band that has their stuff dialed in, recording and mixing them is going to be infinitely easier than a band that doesn't really know what they're doing, and you have to fix a lot of their stuff in post. But if I'm nitpicking about that set, the one thing, there are two things that stand out to me that really just like, if only I could tweak it just a little bit. And again, I focus mainly on how it sounds in the room, not how it sounds on the recording. The bass did not have a lot of sub low end into it. Like, you heard the bass, but it wasn't like hitting me in the gut bass. That came from the kick drum, and that's okay. But to me, I really like a lot of subs in my bass guitar. And I know if you listen to Typo Negative's albums, they don't have a lot of sub bass in their bass guitar. So give credit to Dead Again. They nailed that part perfectly. But the one that was really sticking out, and I'll use this song in particular, was the main keyboard parts in Christian Woman. They go bum, 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 bum. And you don't hear it that much in the keyboard section. You're probably thinking, well, why can't you just ride the fader? And that brings me to the biggest nitpick, if anything. Their keyboard player, there's certain sounds that the keyboard player was playing where some songs it was really low, and then other songs it was cranked above everything else. So having to follow along with a keyboard that constantly changed sounds and really just have to watch that when I'm trying to watch everything else, sometimes I miss it. So that is a perfect reason to record multitrack and fix in post. Here are the multitracks for Dead Again, and you can see all of the cuts that I have in the keyboard section. And let me zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm doing. All of these cuts right here for the keyboards are from parts of the songs that I think they should be louder or quieter just to get a little more consistent. Same thing with the vocal. The guy who was doing Peter Steele had a vocal processing effect on the end of his chain, so he had effects going on that I had no control over. So his effects are burned into the raw recording. So it was a little bit of a hassle to get this sounding as good as it did, but in the end, it's worth it because the songs are fantastic. So here's that same section of Christian Woman again in multi-track form, and you guys can clearly hear the difference. What a difference. So let me address the first complaint that I had. Again, I'm not saying complaint. I should say nitpicking. So what really gave me that extra low end in the bass guitar is Slate's Infinity bass. I had it on the deep setting. I had 20% on the amount, the frequency around 96, and let me turn off my mix bus settings so you can hear the difference between with it off versus on. All right, well, there's my low end in the bass guitar. And to address the keyboards, so for this section of Christian Woman, and I think, quite frankly, the song that they played before Christian Woman, I raised it plus 5 dB. And over here, during the bridge of Christian Woman, I had it down to 0, so this is the default volume of where they were recorded. And I went through the tracks as well, the samples that the keyboard player played. So for Christian Woman, I didn't raise the samples volume by a lot, but for the intro of Christian Woman, I lowered it by 2.5 dB because it was just a little too loud for me. And I know going into the automation section and automating the fader, I'm doing something a little bit different, but it's given me the same effect as if I were to ride the automation fader. This is so any compressor that I have on the keyboard or sample track, it doesn't over compress it, and it hits a compressor at the same level so that my fader stays at the same level, which means the keyboard and the samples remain at the same level that I would like. So this situation with Dead Again is one of those situations where the LR mix is really good, and I would totally put that out and say yeah, I'm proud of that mix, because I am proud of it. That is probably my favorite mix of 2024. But this is also an example of having a multi-track mix. It elevates the quality that much more, to where I could put that on a record and put it online, and I'd be totally happy with it. It sounds so good that it almost sounds like a studio record, and that's what I'm going for with my multi-track mixdowns. So I just want to make this video to show you guys the key difference of just how important multi-track is compared to just relying on the stereo LR. And to any band that comes to Dingbats that I'm doing sound for, if you want me to record and mix your multi-tracks, just let me know. And if you guys want me to do a breakdown of any of the two other multi-track sessions that we saw from Surrender to Eden or Dead Again, let me know. And let me know in the comment section. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.